I'm going to give you an overview of characteristics of medieval texts. In particular, we're looking at glossing, scriptura continua, word spacing, abbreviations, nomina sacra, ligatures, punctuation, and the punctus. Glossing is commentary or interpretation of the text from an authoritative source. They're found either in the margin or between the lines of the main text, and to distinguish the glossing from the main text, they're usually written in a smaller hand or a different script. In this example, we can see the glossing has a lot more content than the main text, and it is interspersed between the lines. This Gothic manuscript was ruled to include the glossing. It is written at 1/2 the size of the same script as the main text. Scriptura continua is continuous script, and that was used in the majority of the Middle Ages. It was assumed that the reader was already familiar with the text and had it memorized, so the manuscript itself served as more of an outline or a guide. In this example, we can see that all the letters run together. It is not easy to distinguish one word from the next unless you're very familiar with this script or with this manuscript. Word spacing and punctuation most likely developed with the Irish, who were not native Latin speakers. They would have needed tricks and tools in order to understand and read the script more easily. Word spacing and distinct letter forms were also a priority under the rule of Charlemagne. He wanted a uniform script throughout the empire and to make manuscripts more legible. Here in this example, you can see with the spacing, it is very easy to distinguish one word from the next. Abbreviations were used most heavily in the late Middle Ages. The Gothic period in particular used a lot due to the demand for books, and scribes would have needed ways to copy a manuscript quicker. Abbreviations were less common in books that were meant to be read aloud. There are 3 specific types: contractions, suspensions, and symbols. Contractions function in the same way that they do in modern times. The contraction includes the first and last letter of a word and some of the letters in the middle. There are different signs to indicate when letters are missing. In this first example, there's a line crossing the descender of the P to indicate the missing ER in between the P and F. Here there's a horizontal line or a macron above the CO to indicate the missing M. A macron again crossing the ascender of the D to indicate the missing UO, and another macron indicating the missing ER in U or O. Suspensions are when one or more letters are omitted at the end of the word. Once again, there are different signs to indicate that this has happened. Here we have a semicolon looking symbol, a punctus versus to indicate the missing UE, an apostrophe looking symbol to indicate the missing US, and that punctus versus again to indicate a missing US. Symbols replace entire words or collections of letters such as prefixes. Here in this chart we can see S can be replaced by a symbol that looks much like a division sign in modern times. The prefix con, kun, or ken can be indicated by this symbol that looks much like a 9. Nomina sacra are a specific subclass of contractions. It's sacred names or names of the deity or the divine that are found regularly in manuscripts because most manuscripts in the Middle Ages were religious texts. Here you can see the different variations in this chart, and some examples here. You can see all of them use that macron, indicating that there are missing letters within that word. Ligatures are combinations of 2 or more letters that change the form of one or more of those letters. Here in this example, habitans, the N and the S are combined to make what looks like its own distinct separate letter. Here in Ilios, the O extends far above where it normally would sit in order to connect with that tall S letter form. There were different variations of punctuation. The first example is per colla et comata. Now this didn't use any particular markings to indicate punctuation. It was the layout of the text that determined the flow. Each line of text was its own clause. In distinctiones, they used the punctus, and the height of the point on the line or the number of points indicated the length of the pause. In positure, the shape of the mark determined the length of the pause, rather than the number or the height on the line. Here we can see different variations. This is a punctus elevatus with a line ascending up and to the right. The punctus versus, again, that looks like a semicolon. And the punctus flexus that has a point and then a carrot-like shape. Now the punctus is a point. There are different variations as we saw, but it can be used either on the baseline or raised above it, either for word separation or in punctuation. This example here, script of using Roman rustic capitals. There are punctuses interspersed to determine word separation. And here are some more examples of punctuses used at the end of words for punctuation. Well, that was the basic overview of different characteristics you can find in medieval texts.